Definitely fun. Absolutely love the game. I love the story. I love the somehow secondary new twist in the game. Fantastic. Probably my favorite thing. It's just like, I can't believe they did it. They did a double twist. That's so good. That's not something you can just pull off. So that was fantastic. The visuals, obviously, it's crazy. Like, it's so crazy. Because now I can watch all those comparison videos, because that was something that I didn't want to do before, because I was like, I don't want to see any differences. I don't want to know if like they compare this room to the original to the remake, and then there's like, oh, it's slightly different this one. I didn't want to know any of that stuff. So after a while, I kind of just stopped looking at everything. And so I can finally, now that I've beaten it, I can watch all the videos I want to, because I've wanted to watch so many things. Like, here's the comparison for the old game, here's what it looks like with the new game, here's comparisons with the weapons, the line gun being upgraded to basically what it was in the second game. Once again, I swear it had to be what it was in the second game, was like the trip mine thing. And the way they did that was very well done, because like I said, in the second game, it really was like a trip mine, where it was really more like bullets shooting out more than anything else. And once again, I'm pretty sure that was the line gun that they did that with. And in this, it was like, okay, it could be like a trip laser beam. And it's like, oh, well, that makes sense, because it's still like plasma and stuff. So it's like, that totally works. I love that. Especially once you get to the upgrades, you get the 3, and it's like, it's perfect again. It's really good. Once that's upgraded, it's back to like, yep, that's my favorite weapon. I can just shoot that. They can't even get to me. And then I just line up at the top, boom, one good shot, and it just chops everything off, and they're gone. So back to being, my favorite. But it is hard to deny the fact that the kinetic gun has a wormhole, which once upgraded is an electric wormhole. That's insane. That's my favorite move in the whole game, without a doubt, because visually it's great. The sound design for it, the whole game, the sound design is fantastic. I think I mentioned when I went through the very first time, I was just stomping on the ground. It was like, that actually sounds like specifically a grate with holes in it. It doesn't just sound like it's a boot stomping on metal. It sounds like stomping on a metal grate. And it's like, the sound design, absolutely phenomenal, whether it's from the monsters, the freaky voices, whispers, and things like that. All well done. Like I said, the graphics, of course, being updated to what they are modern wise, absolutely phenomenal. The upgrades to the weapons are really well done. The changes to the story, as like just the minute little things that they did, were so well done. The way they changed stuff, like I said, Mercer using stasis as like his big thing, and that's how they kept that dialogue, where it was like, only he talks, Isaac doesn't get to speak, and then you get to talk with him later. He still does the kinesis thing, because in the original game, the guy that he kills with the nail gun, he's just tied up to a chair. That's how they do it. Like, you come across him and he's just basically captured the guy, and he has him tied to a chair. So them doing it this way, where the guy was like kind of fighting back, and then he gets hit with the stasis, and then he, unfortunately he's killed. It's just like, man, that's unfortunate. It sucks, but it was definitely a cool way to do it, and really effed up, because like, I would assume him being in stasis means that technically a part of him does register that he's dying. Like, he can feel that being shot in the back of the head. So that was nuts, but I like the way they handled it. As I said during that segment, because that was when we get to the crew quarters, I will say that is the one thing that is, for me personally, way better than the original. I always love that segment of the game in the original, because it's the perfect, it was what I always felt was one of the best examples in a game of horror, because it's completely bright. It's completely lit. That entire location in the original game is 100% bright. The entire thing is just fully lit, 100%, but there's no oxygen. So it's all sound based. Like, everything is like, you have to like keep turning your head, and you have to do a lot more stuff. I felt it was also a bit more engaging, because you don't, like I mentioned before, when I was going through, when we were in, I think it was in Mercer's office, and I tried to like kinesis one of the beds, because you have to do that in the original. It's almost like a weird maze sort of situation. Like, you have to move the beds and stuff out of the way to like actually get through while they're coming at you, from behind, and it's, everything's silent. So you have to keep turning and making sure everything's happening. And unfortunately, they didn't do that. And I will say that is literally the only thing that I feel was less than the original game. Everything else was upgraded. That's the one thing where I was like, that's unfortunate, because I was so excited for that moment, because it's such a great example of how you can do horror with, vibrant, like vibrancy. Like, it's the whole point is like, your horror has to be dark and creepy, and they made it dark. They kind of did the oxygen thing with the gas and stuff, but that was only also for like that very first portion, and then all the other ones were perfectly fine. It was just dark and going through and killing. And it was like, man, that really sucks, because it was such a good example to me that I don't think I've ever really seen done before or after. So it sucks that they didn't really capture that for me personally in the remake, because that was my favorite part of the whole game, just because it's like, it's bright. It is fully bright, especially in the old game, because in this, everything has like more of a bronze tint to it. The old game was like fluorescent lighting and stuff, so everything was like pure white. And it was like, it's super bright and vibrant and stuff, and then it's just silent. And it was like, honestly, I think it was pretty much that whole portion, like everything we went through in the crew quarters and everything, that whole chunk was just like that. Like, at least it was like the big rooms had no oxygen, or at the very least like the second big room, and then like a big chunk of the actual quarters that you move around through, zero oxygen. Obviously you have to hit the tanks and everything, but no oxygen. It's just like the quiet stomping sounds and like hoping that you kind of hear a distant scream, and you're just fighting for your life in silence. And it's like, that's really good. So I do miss that from the remake. It was still fun, and the one epic thing that they did was switch out, instead of it being, you know, the oxygen thing, they swapped in and put the regenerator in there, so you actually fight him more. So that was cool, because in the original you just fight a bunch of enemies, but you do fight a lot of enemies. Even in this one, I felt like my weapons were so upgraded. Every time they swarmed in the big room, I was just, you know, by the time I had the lasers, it was like I'm just cross-sectioning laser beams and no one can even touch me. So it was, you know, the upgrade kind of made that a lot simpler, considering I went through and did all the side stuff before going there. But still entertaining. I still definitely enjoyed that portion. It was just that in the original, that was my favorite thing, because that was something I've just never seen done with horror, at least accurately. You know, a lot of games have elements of horror where it's still bright and stuff like that, but that was like, all right, it's super bright, but you can't hear anything. You know, it was kind of like the stuff where, you know, you either do lights or oxygen. It was just like that. It was like, all right, well, it's bright, but you can't hear anything. Same, you know, same sort of deal, but it was it was like a giant chunk of the game. Or not a giant chunk, but it was a decent portion, I felt. So I do miss that from the original. So that's something where if you were kind of going back and forth between the original and the remake, that is something that's a big enough difference where it's like it plays completely differently going through that portion in the original versus the remake, because it really focuses on there's no sound. So love that. I do miss that. I was really looking forward to it, but it's not to say it really brings the game down. It's just like the one thing that was like, oh man, I wish we had what we had in the original. I will say them adding the Valor, absolutely insane. Adding in the super speed enemies, beautiful choice. Absolutely love that. That was amazing and scary. The regenerator definitely playing a big factor, more of a factor, I'd say, in the game. Was definitely fun as well. Character wise, I like what they did. Obviously, that, you know, going into the twist, that was great. Seeing the characters in kind of different aspects, and a little bit, you know, obviously like characters dying in different ways. Like Hammond dies in a completely different way than he does in the original. He dies on the Valor in this, and that doesn't even exist in the main campaign, or in the original, I should say. So it was interesting how they did that. Kendra died exactly the same, like she just got squished and then she was gone. It was good. It was really well done. So I'm excited to, at some point, beat it on hard difficulty, and eventually, someday, when I have the time, I will go back and I will beat it on impossible mode. But I hope they do the second game, and I hope they do the third game. I don't know what they would do for that one. That's the one that's interesting. It's like, where do you go with the third game? Because the third game, I will say this. I've always thought this, and I'll die on this hill for the third game. The biggest thing that I felt really took away from the horror of that game was the fact that you had universal ammo, because they had that system where it was like, oh, you can make any weapon that you want, so everything had to have the same ammo. And I was like, well, that's a horrible idea, because that made it super easy, because then you could just, everything that you found is like, well, I just want a rocket launcher. Sure, it might use 5 bullets, but everything I find is the same type of bullet. So it was like, why? I don't know why they didn't have the opportunity to just implement that. That could have been an EA thing, because obviously EA is why a lot of this stuff in 3 happened the way it did. But I always thought, I was like, man, if they didn't do universal ammo, that game still would have been at least a lot closer to survival horror. Like the story elements, like having to fight people, still would have sucked, but it would have been a lot closer to what we had in 1 and 2, because you still would have had to scrounge for ammo. Like, all right, I made a machine gun and a rocket launcher. Well, you still have to find the ammo for those 2 weapons. So, you know, I feel like that was a big component of what really messed that game up, aside from, you know, some of the elements of having to fight humans. Never good. So we'll see what happens in the future. Obviously, people are loving this. It's fantastic. I understand why. So we'll see what happens. I hope they make the second game for sure. That would be amazing. I'll see what happens. You know, I would recommend you guys check it out. Obviously, I won't be able to do it on stream, but I highly recommend you guys check out whatever the secret ending is and what all the extra bonus stuff is. I assume it might be either a tease for anything. That it could just be stuff related to extraction, so it might not tease like the second game, but whatever it is, it's a secret ending, so something's there that's special. So I'm gonna look that up right now because I have to know. I just have to know, and I know it'll take me too much time to do it myself, so I'm gonna look that up as soon as I end the stream. I'm watching the completionist video. Highly recommend it. He'll tell you everything. But thanks for joining me for Dead Space. It took longer than I wanted it to, because considering this was only part 4. That means I probably could have beaten it last week if I wasn't tired and, just doing other stuff, life things happening. But I'm glad we were able to get through it. It was definitely fun. We'll see what happens going forward. I really do hope that they make the second game and obviously the third game. I would love it if they made Extraction. It would be amazing. I doubt they would ever do it. But if they made Extraction into a third-person game instead of a first-person game, that would also be absolutely effing amazing. I would love to see that. Even if they just remade Extraction and it was first person again, that would be great too. Whatever it is, all the Dead Space games being remade would be perfect. They could even redo, I can't think of the name of it, but they could even redo the puzzle game if they want to. I don't care. Just redo all of Dead Space. I'll be happy. I'll buy all of it. But thank you guys for joining me. I really appreciate it. I had a great time playing Dead Space. Great time unlocking everything that we got. And great time being scared. It was fun. So thanks for joining me. Hope you guys enjoyed. Check out that stuff with the completionist or whoever you want to see. Learn all the secrets, because I'm sure they'll be worth it. But thanks for watching.